Years ago, when Obama said that he was trying to fundamentally transform the United States of America, some people who were listening took him at his word. And that is what they are trying to do today. They are trying to change the United States of America. You're listening to the LaChance podcast. Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in once again to the LaChance podcast. I am LaChance. As I've mentioned before, I'm a writer for the highly regarded Legal Insurrection blog, as well as American Lookout, and a columnist for townhall.com. You can find me on Twitter at LaChance33. That's at LaChance33. So thanks for coming back. As I mentioned in the opening, one of the things that I want to talk about this week is this idea of changing the United States. And it's something that I think that we're seeing increasingly now. And it's coming from a very specific part of the left, mainly from an organization called the Justice Democrats. This is a political organization made up of people on the far left, and they've got money, and they've got influence, and they've got connections. This is the group that got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez elected. This is the same group that helped elect Ilhan Omar in Minnesota and Ayanna Pressley in Massachusetts. And make no mistake, their ultimate goal, is to fill Congress with AOCs. They want a Congress full of AOCs, and then eventually they want governors who are AOCs, and then, of course, finally, they want to elect an AOC president. The problem with this is that they're not operating from the same point of view as most of us. We're like playing two different games here. We're speaking two different languages, which is why it's extremely difficult to interact with these people or have a conversation with them politically if you're not on the same page as them. Because for most of the American people, we think of this as a process where people get elected and the public lobbies them to do things, and we're all working towards the same goal of improving America and improving American life and making life better for all Americans. That is not that's not the point from which these people are operating. What they're trying to do is change America. And this, once you understand this point, a lot of what they do makes a lot more sense. And one of the things that I found most puzzling about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and if you follow me on Twitter, I say this frequently, is what is she doing? What has she done? And what is she doing now to improve the lives of the people in New York's 14th congressional district? Those are the people that she was elected to represent in Congress. Do you ever hear her talk about them? Do you ever hear her when she's on the news several times a week? I mean, she takes up a lot of political oxygen in the room. She's on TV, she's on Twitter, she's on network news and cable news. Is she ever talking about the people of New York's 14th congressional district? No. No. She's talking about big national issues, and she approaches them as a left-wing activist. She, and the same thing with Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, they approach things on a national level, and it's always from the point of view of an activist. They speak like somebody who is a MoveOn.org activist, because that's essentially what they are. The fact that they're in Congress is secondary to them. They are there to advance the interests of the far left And they're not so much representing the people of the districts that they were elected to represent, as they are representing the interests of the people who back the Justice Democrats, the organization that got them elected in the first place. So once you understand this, then you're not wondering as much why AOC doesn't talk about her district, why Ilhan Omar doesn't talk about her district. It's because they have no interest in that. Their main interest is advancing the interests of the far left. And the Justice Democrats want to get a whole bunch of these people elected. That's their goal. And they're not interested in what I was talking about before in terms of advancing America and making America better for everyone and making American life better for everyone. They don't even like America. They don't believe in America as founded. Ilhan Omar was in the news this week because, she made some comments, and Tucker Carlson called her out for it on the air, and then she snapped back at Tucker Carlson and made some absurd accusations about him being a racist, which is absurd. But that's all she has. And in her comment on Twitter against Tucker Carlson, she said something like, she was indignant, like, how dare you question my love of country? It's like, what love of country? Like, I've never heard Ilhan Omar talk about how much she loves America. It seems like every time she or AOC or Rashida Tlaib talk, they're talking about how much they can't stand America. Because they can't. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to reinvent America because they know better. See, they know better than the people who actually founded this country. So they're going to make it better in their own political image. And this is happening in other sectors of American life, particularly academia, which is something that I cover frequently for Legal Insurrection. If you look at symbols of American history that are being attacked on college campuses as symbols of hatred. Okay, at Hofstra University, we now have a 2 or 3 year long effort by student activists at Hofstra University to get a statue of Thomas Jefferson removed from campus. Okay, this was so off the wall that even the administration at Hofstra, year after year, keeps telling the students, no, we're not going to do that. And every year the students come back and try to do it again. Okay. At Tufts University in Massachusetts, it was recently announced that a mural, which is a sort of historical mural, it's got, historical sort of looking figures painted on a wall at the school, is going to be removed because there are no people of color in the mural. And then we've got a school in San Francisco, which has now decided that they are going to paint over a very old historical mural with George Washington in it, because the claim is that it's traumatizing. I'm using air quotes as I'm saying that. It's traumatizing to some of the students because apparently, it's a historical mural. So there are some negative aspects to it. There are some people of color in the mural who are there, represented as slaves. And this is traumatizing. Well, that's American history, folks. Not everything in our history is perfect, but it's our history. And we need to remember it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And frankly, the mere suggestion that students would be traumatized by an image of George Washington is laughable on its face. And this is what we're dealing with. Again, it goes across multiple levels. of American society. Look at what happened just before the 4th of July with Nike. They're going to put out this new line of sneakers that have got an emblem of the Betsy Ross American flag on the heel of the sneakers. That's the American flag, which has a circle of 13 stars to represent the original 13 colonies. And apparently Colin Kaepernick, who now works for Nike because he couldn't make it in football, decided that he didn't like this because, he felt that it was offensive. And Nike said, "Oh, then we'll just pull the line." And then you actually had Democratic presidential candidates for 2020, like Beto O'Rourke, saying, "Well, I agree with that. It's time. We've got to confront these things." Are these people insane? It's not only the insanity, it's the utter stupidity. And again, it's not knowing our history. Because if you know history, you know that Betsy Ross was a Quaker. And the Quakers were essential in the formation and maintenance of the Underground Railroad, which helped slaves escape to northern free states where they could live as free people. So for Colin Kaepernick to be saying that, the Betsy Ross flag is in some way offensive to him because it represents like the oppression of slavery or something, it's just, it's not only ridiculous, it's stupid and ignorant. At the same time that he's working for Nike, which has actual sweatshops overseas where people work in slave-like conditions. And Colin Kaepernick gets paid millions by this company while he's dissing the Betsy Ross flag. I have news for Colin Kaepernick. Betsy Ross did more for people who were enslaved than you ever have or ever will, pal. Okay? But it's all part of this transformation that's going on for people on the far left. And what they want to do is they want to reinvent America. And the way that they're doing it is by just chipping away a little bit at a time. This is offensive. That's offensive. That offends me. That traumatizes me. Get rid of that statue. Get rid of that flag. We don't want that painting hanging here anymore. And it's death by a million paper cuts. And what they're hoping to institute is their own new leftist utopia, which is socialist, of course, naturally. I'll give you another example. The Green New Deal. I have been saying for months that the Green New Deal has nothing to do with green. I've said this to people in my family, and they've looked at me cross-eyed, like, what are you talking about? I've said it has nothing to do with the environment. What the Green New Deal is really about is replacing capitalism with socialism. It has nothing to do with the environment. It has nothing to do with climate change. It has nothing to do with saving the planet. It has one simple goal: the replacing of capitalism with socialism. And then just today, I got confirmation of this, which I'm going to read to you now. Rick Klein of ABC News posted a link to a story in the Washington Post today titled, "AOC's Chief of Staff isn't just running her office, he's guiding a movement." And the quote in Rick Klein's tweet is, "AOC's Chief of Staff has this to say on the Green New Deal. Quote, do you guys really think of it as a climate thing?" Chakrabarty continued. "Because we really think of it as a how you change the entire economy thing." That is the most revealing thing that has been said about the Green New Deal so far. And again, it's from AOC's Chief of Staff. I might be pronouncing his name wrong. I think it's pronounced Saikat Chakrabarty. He's a fellow of Indian descent. Anyway, again, what he says is, and I'll quote it again, "Do you guys really think of it as a climate thing? because we really think of it as a how do you change the entire economy thing. So right there, he's admitting this has nothing to do with the climate or the planet or the environment. It's an economy thing. And what he means by economy thing is replacing capitalism with socialism. That's what they want to do. That is what they want to do. So, and hand in hand with that goal, goes erasing the past. And anybody who has ever heard the term year zero knows what I'm talking about. Because in every far left revolution, they want to start at year zero, day one. They want to dispel the past, and everything is about the bright new future that they're creating. They don't want to remember the past. They want the past destroyed. They don't want the people to remember the past. And they are showing us that this is their goal, and they're doing it in little teeny pieces here and there, wherever they can get away with it. And this is going to go on and on and on until somebody tells them to knock it off. And so far, I don't hear anybody telling them to stop. Every once in a while, you might get a school like Hofstra, which will stand up to the students and say, no, we're not removing the statue of Thomas Jefferson just because you find it offensive. But for the most part, schools, companies, politicians bend right over and say, oh, you were offended by that? I'm sorry. We'll get rid of that for you right now. And this is just going to go on and on and on. And they'll just keep challenging and changing and chipping away and chipping away. Meanwhile, getting more and more people like AOC and Ilhan Omar elected to Congress and to governor's mansions and to district attorney jobs. And the money will keep flowing in from George Soros until we're all waiting in breadlines. That's enough about that for now. The next thing that I want to talk to you about is Medicare for All, which has obviously sort of started as a Bernie Sanders thing, but now some of the other Democrats are talking about it too. But I want to break it down in a way that you might understand it a little bit better. Just give me a moment and then we'll get to that. Okay, let's talk about Medicare for All. Medicare for All is the official plan from Bernie Sanders it's the means by which he wants to deliver quote unquote free health care to everyone. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone, because we've now gone the jump from free healthcare for all Americans to free healthcare for all American citizens, plus anyone who's in the country illegally and anybody who comes to the country illegally. We're going to take care of everybody, the whole world. Right? Now, you can listen to a lot of other podcasts from people who are serious policy wonks who can get into, the projected costs of this and give you exact figures and, the exact number of trillions of dollars that this is going to cost. But I'm going to break this down on a much simpler level. And what I hope that you can take away from this is that you'll be able to engage friends and members of your family by using this analogy in conversation, because this makes it really simple. And first of all, let's dispel with Bernie's completely false idea that healthcare is a human right, because it's not. Healthcare is absolutely not a human right. Okay? Anything that comes to you through the cost or labor of other people is not a right. Okay? Now, that's not to say that, if somebody, if you were walking on the street and you found someone lying in the gutter, you would probably, call 911 or make some effort to get them aid, because this country is made up for the most part of decent people who care about other human beings. Okay? So that's a different thing. Let's put it in a different context. Let's talk about it in something like food and water. Okay? Because food and water are considered sort of universal basic human rights. I mean, even prisoners, even people who have committed the crimes of murder, rape, the most horrible crimes you could think of, when they go to jail, they're still provided with food and water, because those are considered sort of inalienable, you know, rights, things that we give to even criminals, right? By the way, we give criminals healthcare too, but criminals don't get the same healthcare that like former presidents do or celebrities do. So let's be real, right? Anyway, think of it in terms of food and water. Let's say that you live in a medium-sized town of 200,000 people, okay? And in your town, there is one restaurant. Let's say it's a fast food restaurant, a McDonald's. And there is one grocery store. Could be a Stop and Shop. Could be a Shaw's. Let's make it a Whole Foods to appease the progressives out there. Okay. So you've got one restaurant in the town that's a McDonald's, and one grocery store, it's a Whole Foods. And your town government decides that from now on, because food and water is a human right, that the government is going to provide for free all of your food and water needs. Okay? So the government's going to take over the McDonald's, and they're going to take over the Whole Foods. And everyone will be able to just go to McDonald's or Whole Foods whenever they want and get whatever they need. Okay? Now, I'll ask you this question. Do you think you would ever get a meal? Do you think that you would ever even get a parking space at the McDonald's or the Whole Foods? You might if you get really lucky one day. But odds are you're going to show up and the place is going to be a mob scene 24/7, 365 days a year. And getting food will become really, really difficult. And of course, now that all the people who work at the McDonald's and the Whole Foods are government employees who can never be fired, what do they care? If some people go hungry, that's just the way things go. They no longer have an incentive to make sure that it's a pleasant experience because they're not beholden to anyone. They're part of the government. So do you see where I'm going with this? Because see, part of Bernie's problem is that, he can, if Bernie were to, by some miracle, ever become president and ever get Medicare for all through Congress, they can say that it's free all day long, and it sounds great on paper. But that doesn't mean that you'll get medical care. And if you get medical care, there's no guarantee that it'll be quality medical care. What'll most likely happen is you'll show up at a hospital and the waiting room will be packed to the gills, and there won't be enough doctors, and there won't be enough nurses, and there won't be enough people who know how to operate x-ray machines, and there won't be enough people who know how to treat specific diseases. And so the quality goes down, and even the quantity goes down, because there's just not enough. And if that sounds harsh, tough, I mean, that's just the way it is. Our system now isn't perfect. And I certainly believe that there's room for improvement. But making something free doesn't mean that you magically have enough doctors, nurses, medical staff, hospitals, resources to make sure that everyone is taken care of equally, because they won't be. And if you think that Bernie Sanders or the Obama family or anybody else who's connected is going to have the same health care you do, then you are stupid and you deserve Medicare for all. Because that is not what will happen. Anybody who's connected will go someplace else. Anyone with the means will hire their own personal doctor, or there will be some sort of unspoken black market where if you have, again, the money and the connections, you'll be able to bypass the rabble and see the quote-unquote real doctor, or you'll have your own personal doctor. One of the things that I've been telling people, my personal belief in how the free market could solve our healthcare problems in America, is if you just completely unleash the free market on the problem. If you turn on your TV, if you watch TV for even just an hour, I guarantee you will see at least 2 or 3 commercials for car insurance. And every single car insurance company is competing with each other for your business. And they're all telling you the exact same thing. They're all saying, we will give you more for less. We will deliver better service and higher quality service for a lower price. And you're bombarded with them. Again, just watch TV for an hour. You'll see several different commercials from several different companies all saying the same thing. Now imagine if the same principle was applied to health insurance companies. Imagine a health insurance company commercial on TV where the spokesman comes on TV and says, we specialize in seniors. That's all we do. All we do is take care of senior citizens. And our experts know exactly the issues that senior citizens face. And we have different plans geared for aging men, and we have different plans geared for aging women because they face different problems too. So we'll, give you a very specialized plan, and we'll do it for less money than the other guy. And then another commercial comes on that says, we specialize in healthcare plans for single mothers. And then another commercial comes on and says, we specialize in healthcare plans for college students. That's all we do. Healthcare insurance for college students. And all these companies would be competing with each other for your business. Because once that genie is out of the bottle, if one company is able to do it successfully, then other companies are going to come up around them to compete for the same business. And it'll be just like car commercials. They'll all be trying to do more for less to compete for your business, to tell you why you should go with them instead of the other guy. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on, and I know that that's, libertarian fantasy land for some people, but I really think that the free market could alleviate a lot of our troubles if we would just unleash it and allow the ingenuity of the American entrepreneur to solve this problem rather than people in Washington. That's just my thought. But speaking of people in Washington, in the next segment, let's do an assessment of where the Democrats are who are running for president in 2020. I just want to take a quick break, and then we'll get to that. So it's mid-July 2019, and we are still months and months away from anyone casting a vote in the Democratic primary. But things are already starting to take shape. A lot has changed just in the last few months. And if you look at the field now, at least according to polling and especially the Real Clear Politics average of polls, it really looks like the Democratic field is coming down at this point. Now, anything could change, so everything I'm about to say could change like within months. But where it stands right now, it looks like the Democratic field is really coming down to 4 candidates: Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, and Elizabeth Warren. Those are the 4 people who are at sort of the top of the polls. Joe Biden has had the biggest lead of anybody since before he even announced, but then especially after he announced. His lead has dwindled a little bit since the first debates, and the biggest beneficiary of that dwindling has been Kamala Harris. Mostly that has been attributed to the fact that she sort of took him on over the comments he had made about working with segregationists years ago. But Joe Biden is still in the lead. He's still way out in the lead, by the way. The other 3 candidates are the other leaders, but he is still by far way out in front. I think the trouble that Joe Biden is going to have is the woke factor. I think that by the time that we get to the actual voting, I think that he's going to have a real problem with the sort of base of the Democratic Party. I think that they want somebody who's newer and fresher and younger. Somebody who hasn't been in Washington politics for 40 plus years. And it's all another thing. The other problem that Joe Biden is going to have going forward is, number one, he's a walking gaffe machine. And number two, many of the issues that they're going to be talking about, it's going to be very easy for the other candidates to turn to Joe Biden and say, well, why didn't you do that? Why didn't you take care of that? For all the years that you've been working in Washington, why didn't you take care of that for the 8 years that you were vice president? Why are you talking about solving this problem now? And that's going to be a real tripping point for him. But as it stands right now, he's still in the lead. Then you've got Bernie, who still has a slight advantage, but he's going down. Just this past week, Bernie has been sinking in the polls. And I think the biggest challenge that Bernie faces is that he's got this sort of core of support in the far left, but it never really changes. It's sort of stagnant. He almost did better in 2016, and the reason for that, I think, is just because in 2016, he was the only alternative to Hillary Clinton among Democrats. And so there was a lot of excitement around him from the far left faction of the party, because he was like their only other choice besides Hillary Clinton. Now in 2020, you've got this massive field of candidates to choose from if you're a Democrat. And I think it's hurting him significantly. And like I said, he did not have a good week this week or last week. He's actually had some issues in the polls, which is one of the reasons why you see him now pairing up with AOC and using the exact same language that she's using about we've only got 12 years and this is our World War II and blah, blah, blah. He wants her as an ally because that can only help him. Because if he can align himself with her, and if he can gain support from the people who support her, that will only help him. And you'll see him do that and other things going forward as he's desperate to stay in the game. So those are going to be his issues. The problem I see for Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris is there can be only one. Like that famous line from the movie Highlander. There can be only one. because I really can't picture, and I know Greg Gutfeld of the Five has said that he actually sees a ticket with the two of them on it. I don't see that. I really don't. I feel like it's got to be one or the other. You know, either Kamala is the nominee or Warren, but not both of them on the same ticket. I just can't see it. Kamala Harris has got issues of her own, being a former prosecutor. That's going to eventually come up in the debates. Somebody is going to hit her from the left and basically call her a cop, which she was. So that's going to be an issue for her. And then Elizabeth Warren's issue is the fact that she's damaged goods, which I've been saying for months. I think that the Democrats vastly overestimate her appeal on a national stage. I think she'll do very well with Democratic primary voters. But I think in a general election on the national stage, I think she gets destroyed. In terms of the other candidates, I think Beto O'Rourke is finished. I think he's done. I don't think he realizes it yet, but I think he's done. Pete Buttigieg, not really sure what happens with him. I mean, he was a real flash in the pan a couple of months ago. But if you've noticed, he's sort of drifted out of the news cycle a lot lately. And part of that might have to do with the shooting that happened in South Bend, the city of which he is mayor. And, after that, he just before the debate, he sort of stopped campaigning and went back to South Bend, and he got confronted by some Black Lives Matter protesters, and the optics of it were very bad, very bad. And I think he has trouble with black voters. I think he had trouble with black voters anyway, but that situation certainly didn't help. So, but you never know. Again, anything could change over the coming months. And if somebody like Kamala or Warren ended up getting the nomination, they could easily turn around and choose him as their running mate, but that remains to be seen. And then those are the only candidates that really matter at this point. I mean, other than, Marianne Williamson, who's just awesome because she's so insane and so entertaining to watch on the debate stage. And let's hope that she stays with us all right through to the end. Oh, and then we've got Tom Steyer. I forgot about Tom Steyer. So here we've got Tom Steyer, the anti-Trump billionaire from the West Coast who has already spent a gazillion dollars trying to get Democrats to impeach Trump. And it hasn't worked out the way he planned. So last week he said, screw it, I'll do it myself. And he threw his hat in the ring for president. He will not last because he's an old straight white guy who is also a billionaire. And if you looked at when he made his announcement on Twitter, I remember scrolling through the replies to his tweet, and it was amazing how many people who were obviously members of the left who were just saying to him, don't do this, don't. He was not warmly received at all. So I don't see him staying in. I don't think de Blasio stays in. I don't think Kirsten Gillibrand will stay in. I mean, it's now been several months and she still hasn't even broken 1%. So I don't know where she thinks she's going. But she's not going to the White House. That's for sure. So, and those are the only candidates I can think of off the top of my head that even matter. Cory Booker. I don't know what happens with him. I mean, I could see him getting picked by somebody to be VP, maybe. Maybe if Warren got the nomination, she could ask Cory Booker to be her running mate. But I don't see Cory Booker becoming the nominee. I really don't. So that's all I can think of on that topic for now. So thanks for listening. Again, it's Mike LaChance of Legal Insurrection and American Lookout. Follow me on Twitter at Mike LaChance33. I hope you had a great 4th. Have a great week. And until next time, keep it real.